you've got to get logic, you've got to get emotion involved, but then you also got to get the brain chemistry involved. This guy, he was talking about how he and other senior programmers at Google, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook were disconnecting from the very platforms they designed to be so addictive. I need that dopamine for the day. You know, I got things to do. The second thing I'd say around persistence is to reward the effort, not just reward the outcome. 70, 60, 50. What no one ever puts in is 100. The title, Unashamedly Superhuman, I thought, who's sitting there going, I'm superhuman? No one's saying that. That's ridiculous. You know, we save that label for the rare few. Thinking about achieving the end goal doesn't really provide motivation. It does at the beginning. It's exciting to start off with, but it's like if you're running a marathon, after mile 8, thinking about the finish line won't provide motivation. You start to think about mile 9. Right? How do you stay focused in a world of noise? Become able to not be distracted by these sort of impulses, these, you know, to check Instagram, to go and snack.
People are looking ahead now to 2023, but how do you go from just having an idea in your head to getting yourself to accept it and putting in place that process to finally manifesting and achieving what you wanted?
Again, there's a guy I was reading up about, a guy called John Hagel. He worked for Deloitte. He's one of the co-founders of something called the Center for the Edge. And they did a global study of high-performing teams, innovative teams, right? And that may sound obvious, but they found that the goals that recruit the most drive, the most motivation are the challenging goals, the big goals, right? But how challenging is challenging? And it's almost like you want a goal that stretches you. It's like a stretch, but you don't want to snap. First thing is, what is your goal? What is the goal like? Now, the one I picked was ridiculous, and it was too big initially. So I was almost going against the model, right? But because I had a really big reason to do it, that kept me going. It kind of kept me focused. I was doing it willfully. No one gave me the goal. But once you set the right goal, and the goal is exciting, and you're moving it to the new year, you know, how do you maintain that level of consistency then that keeps you focused? And I think that's the strategy is you have to find a way to build the habits in that are going to support you. I mean, you know, January the 1st is a good example. You know, everyone's in the gym in January. You know, you go to the gym in mid-March, there's no one there. I mean, what happened? I mean, they meant well. And I talk a bit about habits in the book, habit stacking, where I go, you know, once you set the overriding goal, this sort of mission critical 12-month goal, you've got to then break it down to daily goals. Like the daily goals are things that you need to do 4 or 5 times a week. That's where you focus. Habit stacking to me is you've got to get 3 things aligned. One, you've got to get logic. It's got to be logical, the thing you want to do more of. You've got to get emotion involved, but then you also got to get the brain chemistry involved. So logic. So for example, how can you reduce friction? So if, let's say, for example, keeps it simple, it's some sort of physical challenge, right? Exercise, getting healthy. You go, well, okay, I want to exercise, you know, 5 times a week. I mean well, and I get into fits and starts. I do it for a bit, then I stop. But I want it to become a pattern, a habit, or it could be the breath work or the cold shower. Well, what can you do to make the environment easier for you to bump into it? What friction can you take away? So, for example, I got, you know, my bike set up in the lounge, which is not very popular, but it's on the turbo train in the lounge because I know if it's there, I will train on it every day. If it's up in the garage and I've got to bring it in, put on the turbo trainer, get covered in oil, do the session, dismantle it, put it back in the garage, that's friction, right? So I want to set up my environment that makes it logical that I can do this thing regularly. Second thing, you know, emotion. So have at least a conversation with yourself. What's the sort of pain pleasure balance? What's the consequence of not doing this thing that I keep saying is important to me? You know, what's the negative visualization if I don't do this thing? Where am I going to end up if I don't make this a habit? So that's emotion. And then the brain chemical bit, rather than go, I'm going to train for 21 days and make it a habit, you've got to build some flexibility into that model, because for most people within 10 days, they've missed 3 and they go, forget it. So go, rather than that, put it into like 7 3-day blocks. So for the next 3 days, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things that I keep talking about just for 3 days. And then after the 3 days, you assess, did I? Yes, I did. Although that one I only did once, not 3 times. Okay, so you're building in failure. Okay, now let it go. Start again today for the next 3 days. Now what'll happen over these 7 3-day chunks? Either you'll establish that one of those 2 or 3 behaviors wasn't that important to you. But what you also find is if you remind yourself after 3 days that it's okay not to do it, but now you're going to go back again for 3, you get this renewed dopamine release, this anticipation kicks in again. There's no disappointment because you factored it in. But then what happens over the 21 days is 1 or 2 or 3 of those things will stick.
Because you develop a streak, right?
You're exactly right. Yeah. And there's so many apps you can use nowadays if you need that kind of motivation to kind of tick the boxes as you go along. And if it's important to you, 21 days later, that thing will be a pattern.